Chapter 53 Homeschool for Thieves. Darius balled up his burrito wrapper and looked around the drafty train car. I am seriously getting tired of these accommodations. Izzy looked up the next two targets. Renee Reuter lives in Connecticut, but Blanche Pottage is a San Francisco socialite, Jules said. We're going to have to rustle up some fake IDs to get on a plane. And the one place people notice kids is when they're traveling alone. Be easier to travel by private jet, March said. Don't torture me, Darius said, his hands on his stomach. I'm full of beans. Things could get nasty. March grinned. I texted Carlotta Grimstone a photo of the 4 moonstones and told her the next target was in San Francisco, but we needed help getting there. We leave for San Francisco in 2 hours. Private jet? Darius hooted. I haven't been in one of those since my daddy hung out with Bill Gates. The others rolled their eyes. Sure, Dee, Jules said. I read Oscar's emails on that flash drive, Izzy said. He's already booked to fly commercial, day after tomorrow. He's not going to give up on the moonstones, March said. Or us, Jules said. He knows we're after all the stones now, and that we ripped him off. The thought of Oscar coming after them cast a sudden chill in the air. Let's focus on SF, March said. We've got the time difference in our favor. 3 hours earlier there. Best if we go tonight, catch what sleep we can, and be ready to go early Sunday morning. Just don't ask me to catch a cab, Darius said. They don't stop for brothers in dreads. No worries, March said, waving a hand. Carlotta is sending her car. After they pushed every button they could push from the back seat in the limo, tormented the driver by asking if Darius could wear his hat, turned the TV off and on, and poured sparkling water into champagne glasses, March got back to business. Izzy has researched our 2 targets. We're lucky because these 2 have digital trails. We know where they live and about their routines. What about the first heist, Particle Zoo? Jules asked. We haven't figured it out. I reached out to someone who might know where the first moonstone is, March asked. FX. FX, as in special effects? Darius asked. He's not your ordinary dude. Another uncle? Sort of. He might be able to help. The thing is, he's got this paranoia issue. Won't answer an email or a text. I had to send a card to a post office. I'm hoping he'll come through. Meanwhile, let's just get these 2. March tapped the paper. San Francisco is wet paint, Jules said. Let's start there. What does it mean? Details make the job, March said. Alfie always admired a jewelry store heist in Biarritz. There's a bench in front of the jewelry store that the gang wants to rob. The weather's nice. People sit there all the time. So what does the gang do? They paint it. Then put a wet paint sign on it. Nobody sits on it. They rob the store. No witnesses. So, we're supposed to paint a bench? I don't know if Alfie meant it literally. The lesson is, when you plan the getaway, you disable the thing that the target or the witnesses might be using. You make it so there's no one around, or so you shake someone out of their routine. I think it will make sense when we get to San Francisco. Alfie always used to say, the map is not the territory. It means you can plan something down to the last detail, but until you're actually right in the space, on the street, whatever, you don't know it. And what about the Connecticut job? What does plastic replica mean? Easy, the Tucker Cross, named after Teddy Tucker, the driver who found it in a wrecked 14th century ship at the bottom of the sea. Gold cross with 7 big fat emeralds on it. The government of Bermuda wants to get their mitts on it, so they buy it. Then one day, about 20 years later, the Queen of England is coming for a visit, and they take a look and find out it's been replaced by a cheap plastic replica. The thief was never found. Lesson? Replace the item you're stealing. Chances are no one will notice until you're far, far away. But if Alfie made a replica of anybody's jewelry, I haven't found it, and we don't have time to figure out how to make one. So for the last one, we'll have to reach into Alfie's bag of tricks to come up with his favorite rule. What? Izzy asked. Improvise. Chapter 54. Like a Bazillionaire. The plane was a Gulfstream, and it came with a pilot, a co-pilot, and a self-service kitchen with snacks, sandwiches, and sodas. There was a flat-screen TV and a couch. So this is how rich folks travel, Izzy said. No lines, no hassles. Just drive up and get on. Everything is easier when you're rich, Darius said. Money can't buy happiness, Jules said. She tried to look nonchalant, but she settled into the leather upholstery with a sigh and ran her hands down the armrests. Darius chuckled. Are you crazy? Of course it can. Izzy and Darius slept. Jules slumped in her seat, her earbuds in her ears, her eyes closed, but March knew she wasn't sleeping. He sat down across from her. Outside the window were just thick clouds and thin air. They were suspended, moving so fast they didn't seem to be moving at all. With her eyes still closed, she said, "You seem so confident we can do this." Doubt is something that should be entertained privately. Another Alfie quote, right? I think I'm starting to get why he was so afraid. March hesitated. When I saw you dangling from that fire escape, I kept thinking you were going to fall. It was like the moonstones wanted you to. I've never been so scared, Jules shuddered. And believe me, I've been up that high before. It's like the prophecy is taking hold of us or something. Like it's going to push us. I felt it too. Maybe he felt it that night. He had all 7. Maybe our mother felt it. Maybe she felt pushed. March felt the moonstones then, the weight of them in his secret pocket. Last night the dream was worse. Scarier. I think it's because I know you. He swallowed. Losing you in the dream is harder. I know, Jules swallowed. Alfie believed it, and I think Hamish does too. And now, I do. March let out a shaky breath. I think there's a reason Alfie was going after the moonstones. It wasn't just the money. I think he was trying to break the curse. But how? March shook his head. Maybe Carlotta Grimstone will tell us. Didn't she say she cheated death? If we get them for her, she owes us more than money. Good luck with that. She only cares about herself. That's obvious. They were quiet a moment, their heads back against the soft leather seats. Well, if it doesn't work and we find ourselves in midair, Jules sat up. I'll show you some grips, so you can hang on. Grips? Circus holds. Give me your hand. Here's a C grip. Wrist to wrist. It's a catch grip. Put your hand over my wrist. Index finger like this. Yeah, so you have wrist mobility. See? March felt her pulse against his fingers. Got it. Here's the triangular locking grip. It's the strongest, but it's not a catch grip. It's a hold grip. Here, put your fingers this way. That's it. Feel how strong it is? He looked down at their hands. For the first time, he noticed the shape of their fingers were the same. A word floated into March's head. Do. Do, he blurted. That's what I called you. Jules frowned. Then a grin spread over her face. Mo, that's what I used to call you. I remember now. I remember you. It's not a memory exactly, March started. More like a dream that actually happened. Jules looked down at their hands. We used to hold hands. All the time. They raised their gripped hands in the air. See, Jules said, we won't let each other go. Promise? Promise. They crashed back into their seats. Tell me about Blue, March said. Jules turned and looked out the window. What was it like? He asked. Growing up like that. It seemed so free. She twisted to face him. What was it like being the son of a thief? Lonely. The word came out before he could stop it. The truth. Jules sighed. You know what? If you're a kid and your life isn't normal, if you're different or your family is your life, or your life is, it's hard. Period. Most kids want to run away to the circus. It wasn't a movie, Jules said. It was mud and calluses and being hungry and being afraid and running from the police and having things be normal for 5 seconds just before they weren't anymore. It was about feeling dumb because you could only go to school for a few months before you were yanked out again. It was looking at other kids and wanting what they had. Life with Alfie wasn't easy. I was alone a lot. I was scared a lot that he wouldn't come back. And then he didn't. We could make it happen, March said. We could make everything stick. If we pull this off, we could make a home. Jules was quiet for a moment. Do you really think we can pull it off? I mean, never show fear or doubt, I get that, but what do you really think? I really think... I don't know, March confessed. Does that scare you? You're the girl who won't start something she can't win, right? That used to be true. Jules seemed to shrug off her mood like a coat she was tired of wearing. She grinned at him. Before I realized how much fun it can be to try. Chapter 55. Gigi Poo. In San Francisco, they took a cab to an exclusive neighborhood called Seacliff. Sprawling, Spanish-style mansions with red tile roofs and lush gardens overlooked amazing views of the Blue Bay and with the orange Golden Gate Bridge in the distance. Whoa, Izzy said. This is one big bucket of heaven. This is a very white neighborhood, Darius said nervously. Maybe I should have dressed as a gardener. We're okay, March said. Let's just walk by the Pottage house and take a look. Izzy, fill us in on the details again. Blanche Pottage, socialite in San Francisco, Married, 3 kids, and her husband is a financial advisor. One of those ladies who is really, really busy and doesn't do anything. The bad news is there's no record, no photo, no mention, zip of a piece of jewelry with a moonstone in it. The good news is that she just did an interview for this feature called My Morning Routine on a Society blog. Anything useful? Her trainer comes at 7 a.m. She makes breakfast for her kids and husband, then walks her dog at 8:30. She always goes alone. She calls it me time. Barf. This is it, March said, slowing down as they turned the corner. They all gulped when they saw the splendid, sprawling mansion. March followed the pitch of the roof, noted the 2 terraces, one probably outside the master bedroom. No bushes near the house, no good places to hide. In one window, the unmistakable sign of a security company with codes and alarms. An invisible fence for the dog. An ornate iron gate across the driveway. Parked inside were a Mercedes convertible and an SUV. It's a freaking fortress, Darius said. Crackable, March said. Because everything is, Alfie used to say. But he had no idea how to do it. The curtains were drawn back in a front room. From here, March could see a peach silk sofa piled with pillows. On one wall was a huge painting with a gold leaf frame. A vase was in the window, crammed with dozens of white roses. He thought of his father, who had a strange sense of honor about his targets. He had moved through the world of the wealthy, but never been part of it. He stole from those who had been rich so long they had forgotten ordinary cares. He stole from those who lived in houses like this, plump with silk cushions and bursting with too much of everything. He stole from those who wrecked the lives of others and dusted off their hands and said, "It's business." March had seen again and again, in fancy restaurants and hotels, so often he could smell it, the ease of privilege inherited and unearned. He was his father's son, and he didn't care that he was stealing something from a woman who could simply call her insurance broker in the morning and buy another gem by Tuesday. He was ready to go. "Duck!" Izzy said. "There she is!" "Izzy, chill," Jules says. "She doesn't even know who we are." "Oh, right." Blanche Portage came out of the front door, a stocky woman in khaki pants and loafers. In her hand was a leash, and the leash was attached to a very small dog with the hair the color of ginger ale. The dog kept yapping and jumping as Blanche tried to get her to quiet down. Her glance slid off them as if they didn't matter. Just some kids walking down the street. She made a left at the end of the driveway and then crossed the street. "Just keep walking," March said. They kept on the opposite side of the street as she tugged on the leash. "Behave yourself, Gigi Poo," she scolded. "Remember, I'm in charge." "Did she just say Gigi Poo?" Jules asked. "Is that a dog or a rat with a wig?" Darius asked. They followed her up a pretty winding road lined with cypress trees that cut through the park. On one side was a golf course. The lawn ended, and the expanse of blue bay and golden hills hit their eyes. A plume of fog lay lightly on the water, but the sun shone. Cyclists and other dog walkers and runners were out enjoying the morning, and the gang wasn't worried about being spotted. They moved closer. "Mommy brought you to your favorite place. Don't you love Mommy?" The dog yapped and ran in circles. "Silly you," Blanche said. "Come on, let's find our bench." "Is she wearing the moonstone?" Jules asked. "I don't think so," March said. She walked a little way and chose a bench under a tree with the view of the bay. Blanche took a handkerchief out of her pocket and dusted off the bench. Then she sat down, and the dog yapped at her ankles, then nosed her way to the trunk of the tree. "Don't take too long, Gigi Poo. I have a busy day." March snapped a picture with his camera phone. He got an uneasy feeling as he pinched and zoomed on the photo. He handed his photo to the others. "Yeah, I know," Darius said. "It's not a rat, it's a dog." "Look again." At the collar. Jules leaned over to peer at the phone. "You've got to be kidding me. The dog has the moonstone?" Chapter 56. Fooling the Yapster. "Oh no, bro." Darius backed up a step. "I'm not messing with a dog." Jules grinned. "It's not a Doberman. It's a Maltese. It's the size of your pinky, Dee. You take one look at that dog, and you know that dog is mean." "He's afraid of 'em," Izzy said. "Am not. Just don't like them." "Uh-huh. The question is, how do we get the collar? She doesn't let Gigi out of her sight." March kept his eyes on Blanche and the dog. "House was protected by an invisible fence," Jules said, "so we can't lure her out of the yard. We were going to break in anyway. What's the difference?" "The difference is, it's on a dog." Frustrated, March leaned against a tree. The air smelled so good here, cool and spicy. He didn't know the names of the trees, and he didn't recognize the flowers, yet this place reminded him of another city. Every time he reached for the memory, it danced out of reach. Why would somebody put an expensive jewel on a dog collar? Izzy asked. Because she's an idiot, Jules said. What about the wet paint? What was Alfie planning? I don't know, March said. I'm thinking he knew her routine. He knew the bench, and he'd planned to somehow get her to another spot, someplace easier for the getaway, maybe. But I don't know if he knew that Gigi the dog had the moonstone. He felt frustration build. He couldn't figure it out. If she walks the dog at the same time every day, we could just grab the dog, Jules said. How hard could it be? Take off the collar, give her back the pooch. Look at all these witnesses, March said. There's cops on bikes and people everywhere. Maybe we could stage a mugging and save her, Izzy said. Everyone looked at Darius. He stepped back. Oh, so you all look at the dark guy. No way. I'm not conforming to racial stereotypes. Been there, done that with my pigeon drop. We're not thugs. We're jewel thieves. But we've got to figure it out, and do it tomorrow morning. Oscar's plane gets in at 11 a.m. March tilted his head back and looked up at the tree, then out at the landscape. Fog was starting to drift in at the bay. Birds wheeled overhead, diving and circling. He almost got clobbered by the bird droppings as they flew by. Lisbon, March thought. This place reminds me of Lisbon. When that pack of kids squirted mustard on Alfie's back and then cleaned him up and tried to lift his wallet. He laughed and tossed him some catch. Easier just to ask. He smiled. Uh-oh, Darius said. Dude has got a plan. Chapter 57. Such helpful children. Shopping list. Mustard, food coloring, wet wipes, peanut butter, bottled water. That night, as he drifted off in the Grimstone private plane at the airport, hoping for no nightmares, March heard the buzz of a text. He picked up the phone. It was from Mike Shannon. Good luck. He turned off the phone. The gang had decided to ignore Mike Shannon for now. If they collected the moonstones, they'd deal with him. The next morning, they all dressed in their navy blazers and white shirts. They combed their hair and dusted off their sneakers. Where are we from? Chicago, Darius said. Who makes the approach? Izzy. Jules, got the mustard? She held up a tube. Ew, Izzy said. We really made it look gross. Jules grinned and tucked it into her pocket. And the signal is, such a lovely day, Jules repeated. Everybody ready? Okay, now let's go get ourselves a moonstone. Izzy was the lookout. As soon as she saw Blanche leave the house with Gigi, she streaked across the park and signaled them. Jules jumped from the bench and caught the lowest branch of the tree, then swung herself up and concealed herself in the branches. Izzy calmed her breath, smoothed her pigtails, and went to sit beside March and Darius. In just a few minutes, they saw Blanche in the distance with the scampering dog. When she saw them sitting on the bench, her mouth tightened. Go, March said out of the side of his mouth to Izzy. Oh, what an adorable doggie, Izzy said, springing up and crouching near Gigi. Can I pet her? Blanche's smile was strained. She doesn't like people. All dogs like me, Izzy said. She reached out her hands. Gigi licked it, then snuggled closer to Izzy's ankles. Blanche tugged at the leash. Gigi! No, it's okay. Look, she likes me. Izzy held out her hand again. Every time Izzy put her hand in her pocket, she came out with a little smear of peanut butter. Gigi licked her, tail wagging crazily. March popped up. Oh gosh, we're on your bench, aren't we? Have a seat. He slicked back his hair and smiled in what he hoped was a winning way. I'm Arthur Fairchild, and this is Harry Windsor. If you want to reassure a rich mark, just name yourself after a British king. Works every time. I'm Elizabeth Middleton, Izzy said. We're visiting from Chicago. We go to the Dunnington Academy. Wow, this is an amazing city. You're lucky to live here, ma'am. Darius slid over, leaving room for Blanche. That's just what we were saying. Blanche had hesitated, but the combination of blue blazers, a private school, and the earnest smile of the group encouraged her to park herself at the end of the bench. She kept a good distance from them, but she sat. Exactly where they wanted her to. Under the tree. Such a lovely day, March said. Suddenly, a plop of bird poop landed on Blanche's creased khaki trousers. Oh! She cried. Another plop, this time on her starched white blouse. Oh! Oh! Ew! One enormous plop on the end of her long, pointed nose. No! And one last plop on Gigi's groomed blonde fur. No, no, no! Screeched Blanche. The three, March, Darius, and Izzy, all sprang forward. Hurry, old chum, do you have those wet wipes? Let us help you, ma'am. Here. Darius tossed wet wipes and tissues into Blanche's laps. I have a water bottle. March handed it to Blanche, who was picking up the tissues. Fumbling, she dropped the leash. Gigi! Don't worry, I have your dog, Izzy assured her, and I'll wipe that nasty poof off her, too. Bad birds, she said to the sky. Can we escort you somewhere, ma'am? March asked. You seem so upset. I just want to get home, Blanche said. Oh, what a mess! Look, March said, there's a cab. It could have been a stroke of luck, but it wasn't. He'd already paid the cabbie. Perfect! Izzy thrust Gigi into Blanche's arm, along with her handful of tissues. Darius handed her the water bottle. March helped her into the cab. Don't forget your purse, Izzy said, shoving it on top of the pile of dog, tissues, water, and wet wipes. They shut the door. The cab roared off, and Jules dropped out of the tree. They all jogged away, hearts pumping, and cut through the park. When they reached the museum, they hailed another cab and tumbled in breathless. To the airport, March said. Izzy tossed him the collar. He held it up. The moonstone glowed. They crashed against the back of the seat, giggling like 2-year-olds in a sandbox full of jello. 2 more to go, March said. Chapter 58. Missing Moonstone. The exhilaration wore off after the toast on the plane. To Gigi-Poo! They had 2 more moonstones to go, and they knew where only one of them was. The blue moon was Friday. Only 3 days left. Izzy briefed them on the plane. Renee Cass Reuter, super-duper rich, former model who married a bazillionaire tycoon 5 years ago, spent $2 million on the happily ever after wedding, except they divorced last year. Boo hoodle, did they have to take a buzzsaw to the Ferrari? Darius asked. He got the $30 million apartment on Park Avenue. She got the mansion in Connecticut. Moonstone? Jules asked. A ring. Plenty of photos on the internet of her wearing it. March looked at the photo. Anybody else in the house? Izzy leaned forward over the tablet, squinting. Oh, no. What? Apparently, Renee decided that the memories of her marriage were too painful. She sold all of the jewelry he'd given her at an auction. March had a sinking feeling. When? Her gaze was bleak. Yesterday. And the buyer of the moonstone ring? Izzy shook her head. Anonymous, she said. Help me, Alfie. Before the plane touches down, I need a plan, because we have to hit the ground running. Izzy could not penetrate the auction house's records. This kind of security I can't crack, she said. I'd asked my dad, but last I heard, he was in Peru. Too bad mine left the CIA after he bought an island in the South Pacific, Darius said. Could we break into the auction house? Jules asked. Get Izzy to a terminal somehow? March frowned. There's high security in the big auction houses. Cameras, security guards, IDs, check-ins. Plus, they have a photo ID lockout list. They have a file on every known jewel thief. It was hard for Alfie to get in without a disguise. March sat up. Disguise! He exclaimed, slapping his pockets. He dug out his phone. Yes, it's FX. He finally answered. Go away. Red Brick 107, B-Way Corner. That doesn't sound very welcoming, Jules said. With FX, that's the best you're going to get, March answered.